Previously on Spenelli Speaks. If you like romance novels, please do not take any of this to heart. No pun intended. Hi everyone, Danny here. Welcome back to my channel. We are chugging away on these reviews and I'm excited. We are on the tail end of the month, so we're going to be sliding down here with our final reviews this week and next. Now today we are going to be reviewing an audiobook series, C.S. Lewis's A Space Trilogy, which I think I've seen it a couple of different ways as far as the name of the trilogy. I think I saw it as Cosmic Trilogy as well, but whatever it is being called, it does consist of 3 different books, which I'm going to discuss each of those today. Now, the very first book, which is called Out of the Silent Planet, I did do a rapid review of that particular book, and I'll put that up in the cards and in the description below, so you can check that out. But I'll still talk about it here for those of you who haven't seen it. And then we'll talk about the second book, which is Perelandra, I think is how you say that. And then the last and final book, which is That Hideous Strength, which is a really weird title, I think. But we'll get to that towards that portion of the reviews. And be sure to stay tuned to the end of the video so you can see which books we'll be selecting for tomorrow's review. Okay, so let's talk about Out of the Silent Planet. First things first, it's probably my favorite of the 3 books. This follows Ransom, who is a scholar of sorts. He's on kind of a walkabout on the English countryside, and he ends up meeting up with 2 other scholars, professors, at their country home, and he kind of gets man-napped. Can't really say kidnapped because he's not a kid, but he gets man-napped. That sounds so funny. Anywho, and taken into space as a sacrifice to this planet, which is called Malacandria, I think is what it's called. I know it's been a little while that I've read it, so now I'm like, wait a minute, is that what it's called? It doesn't sound right, but it is. I believe that's true. Or what they believe is what they're supposed to have done is brought this ransom. So you can see a lot of the biblical parallels there. But so when they get there, Dr. Ransom, he basically runs away from them after seeing a specific creature, I guess you could say alien life form, that scares him. Very odd-shaped and very menacing to him. And he ends up running away and then meeting up with this other creature or alien life form who he ends up being able to speak with. He's a linguist, so of course he can just all of a sudden figure out the speech of the planet he's on. But I believe that creature's name was Hoy, and I loved him so much. He was such an interesting character, like really showing Ransom, about his world and what everything meant and how they interacted together, like the nature and the creatures and the different kind of individuals that lived on the planet, because there's all these different kinds of people, or not people, but kinds of aliens, I guess. There are these like Triffle Frickies or something, Triffle Rickies, I don't know, but they're like gnome-like creatures, and they were so cool because they could like make things, and they were so funny when you like met them because they're just like, I just felt like they were like little gnomes. They were so funny. And Ransom gets to know all these different people, or again, I keep calling them people, but it's basically the different individual life forms that were there. And this planet we learn is dying. So it's on its like last leg kind of thing. And there are these I don't know how to say it, but like almost like godlike entities, angel-like entities that Ransom gets to know, and they kind of explain to him the cosmos of this planet and that there are other Hildels, it's so hard to say, on different planets, and how they came to be, and how that there is one that is evil and trying to basically rule. And that's how man, so these two other people, Divine and Weston, who had brought Ransom, they basically were corrupted by this evil Hildel. I think I'm saying that right? I don't know. But essentially, if you're looking at it in biblical terms, it's almost like the devil. And he gets to really learn about this, and then he's sent back to Earth, and you find out, which I didn't get until the very end, that the whole story has been told by a third party. So it wasn't even Ransom who was telling the story. It was this third party who, when Ransom came back to the planet, told him, and then he's telling you. So then it like felt really like, wait a minute, is this true? Or, you know, like, so you get what I'm trying to say. Or are you? So the reason why that was my favorite of all of the books is I really like to get to know all of these different species that were on the planet, and just the way that the planet was described was just so interesting and unique. Which then pushes us into the second book, which critics have said that you're able to read that book on its own without having to read the first or the third, and I will have to disagree with that. We do still follow Ransom, and he is on the planet Venus, which is actually called Perelandra in this particular world. And he meets with basically a woman, and then thereafter a man, and Weston is still there, and Weston is like possessed. They call him the Unman because he's possessed by the devil, basically. And it's the most crazy battle scene I have ever experienced in classical, like modern classical literature. Because to me, it felt like one of those like crazy Dragon Ball Z fights where there's like whack, 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 whack. And you see like pow, 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 pow. Like that's how I was reading it when it was happening, because they were like fighting, but they were going across land. So like they would be fighting, and then they would jump on these fish, and then they would like, oh, they would get across this, and you're like, oh, you can see them in the horizon, and they're still following, and then they would get on this other island, and they'd be like, pow, 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 whack, 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 whack. How did that go? Whack, 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 whack. So it was interesting, and you would think that that would be my favorite book, but it really wasn't. The first one was. Essentially, this one more so is that Perelandra, or Venus, is a newborn planet. So kind of starting existence over again. And we see that this woman and man are meant to represent like an Adam and Eve on this new planet. So starting afresh and seeing, or, you know, starting life again. So it's really interesting. There's a dragon in this one, and some other interesting animals. Everyone is naked, like real naked, the entire time. Which, again, nakedness, if you look in biblical terms, was only seen as improper once the apple thing. Anywho, I'm not going to give you a lesson here, but they're all naked. And it's basically just this battle between Ransom, who is trying to keep the purity, trying to keep everything pure and, what's the word I'm looking for? Innocent. from this unman who is in Weston's body, and they are just straight up battle scenes after battle scenes. So very action-packed in Perelandra. Very much a lot of talk about purity and innocence and, you know, corruption and what is wrong with the world and what made that happen. The conversations between the unman and Ransom are quite interesting, and they really do make you think. And especially if you are familiar with biblical lessons, you see a lot of that in there. So there's a lot to parallel between, you know, Bible stories and these books. And obviously we know that C.S. Lewis did a lot of allegory in his writing. So this, again, is another example of that. And then we hit the third book, which is probably my least favorite. So I would say the first one is my favorite. The second one is good too, but not necessarily my favorite. And the third one, I just really, until the end, I was just like, what am I reading? This is so long, and they're just talking and talking and talking. And I would say of all three, the third one is probably the only one that you could read without having read the first two. So you could hypothetically just read That Hideous Strength all by itself. And I say that because they reference what Ransom had done very briefly, and the reference is enough to understand that this guy went to other planets. And then everything else is really explained in this particular book. So I would say if you're looking to just only read one of the three, the third one you can read without reading the other two. So what is it about? So we're not in space. This is completely on Earth, and we follow two people, and they're a married couple. One of which is, I can't even remember their names. Wow. It's like Julia and Mark. I don't know. We're going to say it's Julia and Mark. I don't think that's right. I think it's Mark, but I can't remember the lady's name. Anyways, she starts to have these visions, and these people find out that she's having these visions, and they kind of like take her under their wing and try to help her understand. And she's kind of like, ooh, about it. And then her husband starts being part of this other like society. And you find out real quick that his people are the bad people and the wife's people are probably the good people. So it's this battle between good and evil and keeping the world whole, essentially. It's the bad people want the world to basically implode, and the good people want, you know, people to be safe and, you know, following in the word of the Lord, basically, ish, to a certain extent. There's a lot of Christian talk. There's a lot, again, talk about corruption and evil and how people kind of lean into evil or lean into goodness. And then all of a sudden, Merlin pops up. Like King Arthur's court, Merlin is in this book, like as if he's a real person. And it's just like, there's so much happening. And as a reader, you're just like, what? Where is this story going? And it's all about finding Merlin, because Merlin is basically going to be the one that is going to be able to help either side with whatever they want to do. And then there's this huge, like, battle scene with all these animals that just come out of all these, like, menagerie or something. I don't even know. I was like, where did this come up? There, and you actually get inside the head of some bear that's there, and he's like, you're getting his point of view, and you're like, what? So entertaining, don't get me wrong, entertaining, but I was so confused the whole time I was reading this one. I was like, what is the point of this book? entertaining. I could not stop reading it. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I didn't like this book, but I was so like, where am I going? Where are we going with this? And Ransom comes up, but not until I would say like halfway through the book, he's finally revealed. And he's referenced as the director. So there's the director of the good group, and then there's a director of the bad group. Yeah, there's so many unique pieces. Like, I've not read a book like this, again, in modern classical literature that is so... It's an allegory, right? So we get all these biblical references, but at the same time, it's so off the wall that you wouldn't necessarily think that those two things go together, but C.S. Lewis does such an amazing job in all three of these books tying in this allegorical story of not only this biblical side, but this science fiction side. It's really amazing. And I am not a science fiction reader by any means. And these, I feel like, border on a little bit of the fantasy side, but they're technically science fiction. And I really did like them. I was so pleased when I was done with all three that I had read those. I felt like those should have been part of my repertoire, and I'm so happy that they are now. And having been a C.S. Lewis reader already and have been able to add those to the books I've read of his writing, I'm just so pleased, and I can't wait to read more. I mean, he really is such an amazing writer, and I'm so happy that I am continuing to read his literature, because it's just amazing. Just amazing what he was able to accomplish in his lifetime. He really has some great stuff. So I'm going to keep on keeping on. So yeah, I don't know. If you have anything else to say about those three books, if you've read them yourselves, please mention those ideas in the comments. I would love to chat with you. And then see what you thought. I will also link all of the live discussions. Like I said, I had read all three of these books with a group of ladies over on Victoria's channel, Victoria from A Musical Bookworm. So I will link all of those live discussions in the description below. So if you'd like to take a look about what they had to say and the thoughts that they had on each book, please feel free to jump in on those discussions, because they were really awesome. Okay, so that means that we are looking forward to tomorrow's review, and we need to find out which books we're going to vote on. And I'm sticking with some audiobooks for our selection for tomorrow, but I'm switching genres and going into more of our cozy mystery books. So if you like cozy mysteries, make sure you comment below with the book you'd like to hear about first, which the two I have to pick from are Murder in an Irish Village by Carlene O'Connor. So Murder in an Irish Village, and I'm sure I probably have a picture right here for you. And then the other one, which is actually from a homegrown Wisconsin writer, we have A Crafter Knits a Clue by Holly Quinn. Again, that's A Crafter Knits a Clue by Holly Quinn. And this writer is actually from my hometown, which is really fun, because reading this book, and this is kind of a little bit of a spoiler of the review, I know exactly what she's talking about when she has all these like inspirational things in here of like places in this made up town, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what she's talking about. So it's super fun. But let me know out of those two books what you'd like to see tomorrow, and I will get that review up and running for you tomorrow. Well, until next time, I hope you all are reading something great, taking care, and staying safe. And as always, you know how it goes. Happy reading. Bye.